worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. With Tyler, Phil, and Boris. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
It's Thursday. You know what that means? It's time for a new episode of the It's Canon podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things geek, the podcast where we talk about all things pop culture, and in this show, in particular, the podcast where we review anything and everything, because it's the It's Canon podcast. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Boris, and I'm joined by Phil.
A day late and a dollar short, but we're here, damn it.
Exactly. It is what it is. We're still getting this done. We're going to be talking about everything that we've seen, watched, read, played. In particular, I think the main event is going to be Loki, episode 1.
Yeah, it's a thing, right? It's Marvel just continues to not disappoint.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yep. Right? Well, we'll touch on that in a little bit.
Yeah, I got feelings about it too, but it just was, yeah, we'll talk about it.
They made some strong decisions to make this show kind of its own standalone thing while still part of the MCU, but we're going to be talking about that later. Phil, how are you? How's everything going?
I'm doing great. Busy as crap at work, but you know, what doesn't kill you, good for you, I guess. How about you?
I'm doing all right. It's been a crazy week. I don't even know. This week's just been so weird on so many different levels, from a meta relationship level to a professional level to even my podcasting level. It's just been so strange. It's been a very weird week, but a good week nonetheless.
Yeah, I hear you. And you know what? It's interesting because now, right when we're done this show, I'm going to be updating my Final Fantasy VII to the PS5 version.
Okay.
And then I'm making a decision. I know Returnal, I didn't buy it because I decided to take a stand about the price point. But I am going to be purchasing probably the digital deluxe of Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, that's been getting a lot of buzz. It looks like a fun game. Like, it just looks like it's a fun to play game. Nonchalant, like, no-brainer type game. Looks like a fun game. Games are still allowed to be fun.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, the reviews as well are eating it up, saying it's basically the reason why you bought a PS5. So that's a lot of hype to live up to, no matter what. I know that it's like you say, it's going to be fun. I'm playing one of the older ones just because I know I've dabbled in this series from time to time, and I know that being from Insomniac, it obviously has done a great job because I played the crap out of its last 2 Spider-Man games.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? Studio deserves this chance from me and from hopefully other gamers as well who are able to play it. The only bad part is that the PlayStation 5 isn't readily available, and I think there's going to be people who completely miss out on the experience or have to wait to get to that experience.
Man,
right?
I've been thinking about this a little more. Like, sales right now are good because people are buying them up as they come out. But at some point, I can see some people getting bored and saying, fuck it, and just going to wait. So I'm very interested to kind of see what the sales are going to look like. I'm probably completely wrong. Like, probably the people are going to get them regardless. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting when people actually get them.
Yeah, it's going to fill out the market a little bit, I think. But the thing is that at the point at which it's readily available, I think that the software will have finally caught up. because right now we're eagerly clawing and gripping at anything that gets the PS5 kind of logo, whether it be
Yeah.
a cross platform or whatever. Like, really, on the platform, there's a handful of games that get that exclusive to PS5 kind of label, or, that really pushes the hardware, put it that way. And I think this is one of those games. And I think that anybody who buys a PS5 in months or next year will be excited to have this as a throw-in game.
Yeah,
You
I
know what I
agree.
mean? Where they say, here's the Ratchet and Clank edition included for free to try and get that mountain of PS5s out the door.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's going to be
So,
interesting to kind of see like what the story of this generation is going to be, right? Because I find that the previous generation, PS4, Xbox One, it was really everyone seemed to get their version of the hardware early, and then it was just the waiting game for the games, for the actual software, which took about a year. It took about a year for games to actually really start coming out. Now, with PlayStation 5, it's completely different because, there was a obvious shortage of hardware, even though we were guaranteed there wouldn't be. COVID was a thing, so it was just a shit show from the get-go. And then software, which would have taken about a year, is going to probably take a little longer because of, as we were talking about on Sunday, all the delays are happening with games right now.
yeah, with because of COVID, basically, is
Yeah.
what almost every gaming company is blaming it on. But as well, you have to remember a few years ago, like back in 7 or 8 years ago, when the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One came out, a lot of the blame was on the rapid shift in the marketing reveal,
Yeah.
right? That, oh, well, we have to restructure games and whatnot, because an early release game, for example, was supposed to be The Division, right? And I love the crap out of these games, but that took what, like 2 years, two and a
Yeah.
half years before it hit the market.
They're
And on the back of
conveniently.
my on the back of my PS4 box, it was The Division. You know what I mean? Like, it was a launch,
Yeah.
it, touted heavily at launch.
Yeah.
So
They conveniently latch onto something, right? To signify why things aren't going the way that it should be, right? Like,
yeah,
COVID is the easy out. And I'm not saying COVID didn't change things up, but to the extent that we're seeing the delays that we're seeing, right? Like, these aren't new delays. Look at Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk,
yeah,
I don't want to get into this too much, but we're starting to see that at the beginning of 2020, before COVID was a thing, the actual release date was close to being 2022.
exactly. And this is the kind of stuff that happens post mortem, right? Because
Yeah.
a decision was made, an envelope, a pen got pushed, a bonus was given. I don't know what the circumstances are. I'm only speculating. But and that's the thing. If it isn't this narrative, it's going to be the fact that there's a shortage of semiconductors.
Yeah.
If it isn't that, it's something else. Exactly right. It doesn't matter what it is. It just seems like the industry, and to be fair, the industry is making more and more complex games,
And again,
and the demand and the hype.
as we were talking on Sunday, these games are becoming harder to make. We cannot take away the hard work that these people are doing. Like, it's insane what they're doing. It's insane what we're getting in terms of video games and entertainment and storytelling and this and that. But, we need to become a little more realistic about the releases. And I know that there's so many factors around it, but, we're just seeing it more and more. And I know we're gonna be talking about it more and more every episode, especially when we do our E3 roundup, because we're gonna play a game, Phil. We're gonna make a list of big announcements and release dates, and then we're gonna follow up 3-4 years down the line and see when they were actually released.
See if they hit it. It is funny though, because I used to work in the video, like in a computer store back in the late 90s, and it was one of the things that we laughed at, because I had, like I've said before, I had these big guys from Epic coming in, right? Epic Mega Games at the time. And we were joking around because we're like, shareware was rocking.
Yeah.
Shareware was like $3 or $4 a disc. It was a 3.5-inch floppy, 1.44 megabytes, and we were laughing our asses off at video games that were taking a CD-ROM's worth of memory, like 600 megabytes.
Yeah.
And now you just like Biomutant was 11 gigs, and I was just like, oh, holiday, like that's going to be in relatively quick.
Yeah.
And I'm a happy guy. But I dread to think of when I go to update Final Fantasy VII tonight to this new PS5 version. It's going to be like 100 gigs.
At least.
I don't know for sure at this point, but it's going to be ridiculous. I can hang my hat on that.
100 gigs seem to be the going rate for games nowadays.
Yeah, and that's absolutely nuts. That just, to me, if you can't conceive of how complex these games are right now, that's the indicator. To go from 1.5 megabytes to 100 gigabytes. It's insane. Like when you quantify that, it's a nutty number.
Yep. I remember that my first computer, the first 486 that we had an 8 meg hard drive.
Oh, I know.
And that's
right?
huge.
Like,
that was huge. That was huge for the time.
Here's the grift that I used to pull, because I guess now that the chain is dead and everything, what would happen is RAM was big back then.
Yeah.
Especially in the late 90s. And everybody wanted RAM. And the thing was is that the cost on a 16 megabyte RAM chip was less than, or the same as an 8 gigabyte, but we could move, or 8 megabyte, sorry. We could move an 8 meg, but we couldn't move a 16, because a 16 logically we'd have to charge double for. We couldn't undercut ourselves.
Yeah.
So what would happen is I had 2 8s at home. I was running a maxed out machine. Like I was happy. And my manager was like, hey, you know what? Trade in those 8s. We'll sell them because 8s are hot. I'll give you 16s in exchange.
Nice.
And I was just like, I got 32 megabytes, yo.
Yeah, I know, right? So
like,
crazy.
I thought I was balling at that point.
Yep. It's absolutely insane.
It was an age when we used to use a piece of software called Stacker. Remember?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
To double your hard drive.
I remember.
You compress files.
I remember.
Oh.
Good old days.
I feel so old right now. I used to have a Stacker t-shirt. I wish I still had it.
Nice. I used to write DOS programs because Windows 3.1 was useless, right? So I used to write DOS programs to just launch everything rather than going through Windows.
Yeah, batch files, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Batch files. That was it, man. That was the king.
And I had like my own UI. It was fun.
Oh man, we got to do an episode about that one day. Just all the hacks of the day, because that would make a lot of people laugh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and we should get like user stories and stuff like that too.
Oh yeah, I've got friends that committed atrocities in the name of mankind to just bilk people of cash because people thought computers were magic.
I know.
So we were out there just repairing anything and everything, to the point of hiding a 3.5-inch floppy behind a bezel plate with a boot disc because the master boot record on the hard drive was toast.
Wow.
So we'd mount the hard drive through the floppy, and like I'm booting it up and I'm going, I hear a floppy, and then I pop the bezel plate off, and my friend's like, oh, I didn't think you'd be smart enough to figure that out.
That's funny. Just that actually reminds me of Halt and Catch Fire, when they tried to get the IBMs running off of Unix, but they just made it look like it was.
I know. That's why I love that show. And like we used to do stuff like this. This is the crazy thing. In like a sales environment, we used to demonstrate machines, and I swear to you, we had loading screens on the phone that would make you think Linux is loading. And in real time, it was not. Like we were just basically throwing GIFs at screens and just to make people think it was secure.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is 100% amazing. I freaking love it. But yeah, that's the world we live in. The world we lived in.
Yeah.
So,
luckily I am. Hey, you know what? I hit my 10-year anniversary at my current place of employment.
Yes.
This week. And the funny thing is that you get a gift.
Yes.
You guys are going to love this. So in the past, it's always been a company branded item or some such thing, like a pen or a pair of like cufflinks, even some earrings or something from a jewelry shop, just that aren't branded. And I can remember an ex-wife getting a pair of earrings for that previous anniversary. But anyhow, 10's a big one. And I go to the site and it's just like air miles or something. I'm like, what the heck? And there's a gaming section. And what do I find on it? The PS5 1080p camera.
Love it.
So that's my 10th anniversary gift. I'm like, screw it.
Why not, right?
I'm going to blow
It
your
works.
demographics away. It's just going to be comedy, right? So I ordered that. We'll see when it shows up. And I'm curious to play around with it and see what's happening.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That's going to be good, actually.
Yeah, it's worth a try.
Yeah, exactly.
We always talk about streaming. This negates the need, like this negates the necessity of having a PC to basically process the video.
Yep.
So you can do it straight out of the PS5. It's just the camera's kind of crap, but I can live with that.
Exactly. Speaking of streaming,
needs to see my ugly mug.
Well, soon it's gonna happen. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of streaming, it's gonna happen probably by fall. Let's have our hot vax summer, and then by fall we can bunker down once Tyler's set up in the East Coast. Once we have our summer fun, we can get to real business and go start.
And just think, for all the people out there, Squadrons is free this month on the PlayStation, so pick it up now.
Exactly. Oh man! All right, man. So, video games. You got Final Fantasy going on. What else is going on?
I'm playing a little bit of old Ratchet and Clank. I'm actually not gaming that much. I'm just eking my way through on like trophies on Dirt 5 and stuff like that. I'm waiting for the releases, right? Like Biomutant, I've decided I'm not going to play it right now because there's a patch that came out for the PC, but it's not out for the consoles yet.
Yeah.
It's going through testing. And I kind of want that first patch to hit because the game, as much as I do enjoy it, it's got some control issues and it needs a little polish. Like Tyler said, it would be great if there was a day one patch, and it would be a great game. It would be fun to see it after a 2-month patch. Well, right now I'm waiting for the 1-month patch.
Yeah.
And there's some things. It's not unplayable, but it's just needs a little work. It's
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm honestly so out of the loop. It's not even funny. I've just been so busy the past few weeks. Like, I don't even know how I'm keeping up with like real work, much less all this other stuff. So what else is going on? Reading?
Battlefield 4 demo dropped this week.
Yes.
That was interesting to see. I don't know that I'm that excited about it. I saw so much excitement, but I'm like, it was a video of the game. Like I wasn't convinced that was final gameplay because everything looked like it was a cutscene.
Yeah.
Now, if that's the actual gameplay, I didn't intercept any of the fanfare around it. I just saw the cuts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way that you can, it's like when you're watching the Horizon 2 demo and then you can see the cutscene and then you can see it go live, and the live looks just as good as a cutscene.
Yeah.
But there's no way that character moves like that in the game versus the cutscene.
Yeah.
The cutscene is very choreographed. The cutscene has intricate moves. The cutscene has all this stuff. And then you see the actual gameplay and you're kind of like footing it around and attacking guys and whatnot. I get it. But I need to see this, perform.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. But as far as reading, it's mostly been some comics, really. It's been some of the Star Wars stuff. I read the Bounty Hunter stuff. I read more Vader, another 2 or 3 episodes of that. It's plugging along.
Yeah.
And just trying to finish up Hail Mary. It's been a little bit of a slog now.
Yeah.
It's just getting crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've read the book, you'll know what I mean. It's getting crazy. Yeah, it's reading hasn't really. It's been too hot to read, to be honest.
Been hot to
Because
do a
like
lot
this
of
is the
stuff.
first day. Yeah, this week we weren't kidding on Sunday. It was hot, and this has been the first day of any relief. So
Yeah,
uh,
I'm trying to think.
that factors into everything that we do, right?
Yeah. Sunday was ridiculous. Like after we recorded, I needed to watch in NWA pay-per-view, record a podcast, but in classic Boris fashion, I end up on a friend's backyard patio until 5 in the morning. No,
Oh my God.
3 in the morning. Got home at 3:30. Watched the 2-hour pay-per-view till 5:30. Recorded at 6 in the morning. Got the episode in at 7 in the morning.
Oh my God. That's crazy. I had a late night too because of Sweet Tooth.
Yes, which we will be talking about in a second.
I wanted to make sure that you mentioned that because we were talking about other stuff at the top.
Yeah,
Good
it's
stuff.
there.
You got your notes. You're the pro.
Yeah. So that was my Monday, and then just like every day has just been just swamped with work, like dealing with stupid people, and my personal life. And then so here we are. Okay, so that's in terms of what I'm reading. I'm trying to catch up on DC, my Batman. Dude, I just can't right now with Batman. It's just so poorly written. I just don't like Batman has turned this into this like emo, everything in his life is just the worst, but I don't know. It's just that I don't like the writing of it. I don't like what they are turning Bruce Wayne into.
Is this an attempt to change Bruce Wayne to match the Robert Pattinson stuff?
Nah, not at all. You think there's planning in WB for this? No. Yeah. Don't give him this credit. Do not give him this much credit.
All right. It's just a writing decision. That's fine. And not to offend anyone that's a Robert Pattinson fan, I found that he's been good in a lot of roles. And I've not been sitting there thinking of Twilight or anything like that when I see him. So that association's finally gone. But I did notice this week that there was like rumors, and I just put it in here as a rumor. It's not anything that we should be taking seriously. But that Warner Brothers is unhappy with the Batman movie and considering changes and delays, further delays.
We'll see.
So we'll see what happens. Like, honestly, I can't believe anything, especially with this new merger coming up, because what one C-level group will say right now could be the exact opposite of what the new C-level group says under the new company. So
exactly.
Because, the speculation is that they would have greenlit the Snyder Cut as a full-fledged thing. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, they would have been like, hey, this is where we're going now. We're going to retcon the old stuff.
We'll see where DC ends up. Like, I don't know. They need to figure out their shit. But no, in terms of the comic division, it's just like, I don't know. Nothing is really intriguing me too much. There's odds and ends books, but I'm really sticking to the creator-owned. Our next episode, I'll run through the list and kind of give people an update there. But, I think we should move on to what people typically like listening to these episodes for. That is what we're watching. So we're going to we're going to end off with Loki. We're going to end off with Sweet Tooth. But outside of that, what have you been watching?
You know what I finished? Get this. This was a big, big investment. I finished Comic Book Men.
Oh, yeah.
All seasons. All episodes. And man, I got a little emotional at the last one. I was just like, damn, I don't have... It's like saying goodbye to popcorn or something. It's like, I'm sorry, but I have to cut you out of my life because you're killing me. And that was kind of the bittersweetness of that episode, because I was just like, I knew it was the end. I was drawing it out. And I got there, and then it was just like this, Amazon Prime, what do you want to watch next type thing? And I'm like, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. So, that was I felt like that was an accomplishment and a bit sorrowful, but I can always go back and watch it.
Yeah.
I'm also watching Great North,
Yep.
which is making me laugh.
Yep.
It's picking up as the season goes on. So I think Tyler said that it's basically signed on for a 3-season run. And I'm very happy about that because I think that there's a lot of goodness that's going to come out of it.
Yeah. So just a reminder, Great North is the show by the same people that make Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a stellar cast. It's actually the guy from Sweet Tooth.
Yeah.
The father from Sweet Tooth is playing one of the main characters in it. It's just fun. It's well voiced. It's well acted. It's the writing's getting better. And the characters are learning to become themselves. Like, that's all you can ask out of a first season anyway. And especially a limited one where there's only 10 episodes.
Yeah.
But for a cartoon, like, I really like Bob's Burgers. Really like some of what's happening in that scene. But this has just got, with Bob's Burgers, sometimes it gets a little bit too kid heavy.
Yes.
This has got a pretty good spread of characters where there's kids and there's adults, and they're all actors and actresses that I would watch any day in a show. So that has more appeal to me as well, because I'm just like, hey, look, this isn't a fringe person.
Yeah.
These are good actors.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah. Anything else?
And then otherwise, documentaries. I watched one about the black hole.
Yeah.
Taking a picture of the black hole. That was surprisingly emotional because it deals with the death of Stephen Hawking.
Oh, yeah.
Right in the middle of it. So that got a little bit uncomfortable.
Do you know the name of it?
I'll be honest. It's on Netflix. They were bugging me about it. It's funny because I finished it and then they sent me a message that I didn't.
Son of a bitches.
Well, the worst part is they send so many messages.
You can turn them off.
Yeah, but why? I know. I forget. Here we go. Edge of All We Know. The Edge of All We Know.
Yeah.
It's a good show.
Yeah.
It was one of the new releases, and it's a heavy physics thing.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's all about the idea of turning the Earth into a telescope to take a picture of a black hole.
Yeah.
It becomes like, using a whole bunch of satellites or telescopes around the world to focus in on the same spot that they think a black hole's at the same time for a week, fill up arrays of hard drives, get those hard drives shipped back to a central location that's divided into two, analyze the data for a year with separate teams that aren't allowed to cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
And then merge the findings of the team to see what a real black hole looks like, because they have to interpret data to get the picture.
Yeah.
So I found it fascinating. I love shit like that where I see the technical details, not necessarily of the physics, but of how they derived the image.
Yeah.
And trying to unify Stephen Hawking's theory and prove him right. And he was a big driver. He was a big leaner of information. And then he passed during it.
Yeah.
So he never got to see the results.
Yeah,
but,
that sucks.
That was tough for the whole team. And I know Stephen Hawking is someone that has influence around here. He used to do work with the University of Waterloo and whatnot. So it definitely was a impactful little thing. It was worth the investment, but I had to break it up a little bit. So how about you? What have you been watching?
Handmaid's Tale, obviously. Last night's episode just took this weird change. And it's like this story that has been going on for so long, and I hate when shows do this, and it always scares me when shows do this, but it's when the storyline that's been happening with the main character and someone else, the love story, literally been dragging on for 4 seasons. They've had their ups and their downs, their good days and their bad days. Then all of a sudden, it just abruptly ends. And the second to last episode of the season.
Yeah.
And it's just like, the worst part is, like, without giving too much away, it's just like, they've like there's no coming back. Like, I will be shocked if they come back to this.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's been that. So it's a little weird. The other thing that I've been really watching, my friend she got me on this movie called The Curse of Sleeping Beauty. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's one of those like dark retelling of the fairy tale. It's really well done. Really well done. It's kind of
the
like
fairy tale was probably pretty dark.
Yeah, but this one's like got more fantasy elements, a bit of a steampunk element, and kind of like into it. I like it. It was really well done.
Oh, that's good. I might have to check that out. One thing that I will say for the audience, I just haven't had time to watch Lego Masters episode 2, season 2 yet. So next week I'll talk about the 2 episodes that I missed.
Yes.
Or maybe just the one because it depends on when we record.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I just didn't have time to watch it last night, so that'll be this weekend's guilty pleasure.
Yep. What else? Those are like the main things that I've been watching. It's just like I say, I really haven't had time, and I've been watching just older stuff because, you know, when it's time to actually watch stuff, it's so late, and I'm just like tired.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
As well, there's like a whole bunch of stuff that's waiting to come out, right? Yeah. And that's where we're at right now.
Yep.
We've got the stuff we have to watch, like Loki, like Sweet Tooth, which came out of nowhere. You called it. For me, it came out of nowhere.
I told you.
Yeah, well, I had the reservation last week that I thought possibly there was going to be a horror twist to it.
I know.
And there wasn't.
It's far from.
I'll say this before we get really deep in. Well, not really, really deep into it, but deep enough into it. There is the Bad Batch.
Well, here's the thing about the Bad Batch. Like, we talked about the previous episodes. We didn't talk about it on Sunday. We were saving it for today.
I know.
All right. So.
we haven't talked about 2 weeks worth.
Okay. You talk Bad Batch.
I don't want to sound mean because I like it.
But
it's exactly what we said it would be for us.
Yep.
And that is, it's all about the transition and the minutia of the Empire.
Yep.
That's all that's compelling me to watch this. I don't give 2 rats' asses about the fucking Bad Batch.
Same.
I just see them as expendable people because I don't see them beyond anything in Star Wars right now, which is a canon problem that they have. I just find that the characters, like I was saying about Great North, all right, it takes a season to get the characters down. They're getting the characters down right now.
Yeah.
And Wrecker is, Wreck. Like, yeah. It's just insane. The only thing is that obviously his head problems are related to the chip in his brain. All right. So that's just basically going to be some kind of season ending issue or mid-season crisis point of Wrecker trying to do his orders. This week was all about the dichotomy of robots following orders and Bad Batch not following orders, and the juxtaposition of the clone army. And they brought back those 2 characters from the Clone Wars that they introduced in the last season. So the Ahsoka people there. And it was interesting. It wasn't bad. It's just a big meh for me right now. Until there's an episode that actually chooses to involve someone big or set up something big. And it doesn't have to necessarily be something big that I know in Star Wars, but it has to be a situation that has gravity. It's just pucker butting around it right now. It's just literally like, oh, here are our heroes, and they're trying to figure out who's Omega and shit like that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's getting a little bit long in the tooth for me right now.
It feels a lot like...
It's not bad.
Here's the thing. It's better than, but it feels a lot like Clone Wars Season 1 and 2, where they're just kind of like laying the groundwork right now. And you know that's what they're doing. And like you said, what's keeping me in the show is the details, the transition of, you know, the the what do you call them? The Republic
The clone
to
the Republic, to the Empire.
The Empire. That's what's keeping me in.
The transition's good, but I knew we were in trouble when the first episode was 78 minutes long, and all I could say was it was Star Wars.
Yeah. Yep.
Unfortunately, like seeing Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character in there, not Ezra, but Kanan as a young Padawan and whatnot. Like the highlight, the nuggets were nuggets, and then the rest of it, there was a whole bunch of setup, and I feel like that's what season 1 is destined to be.
Nothing wrong with that,
and that's okay. That's okay, and it's not filler. It's just setup. It's just to give context and meaning to everything else that's going to happen.
But that's my issue with shows set in the middle of very important time periods. It's all going to be filler.
Yeah. And again, to juxtapose that, right? To juxtapose that, you flip over to Sweet Tooth and you have 8 episodes to tell a story, and they leveraged every second of it, as far as I'm concerned. And that is, unfortunately, what that's done is it's made the slow build seem unappealing to audiences because we're used to getting the gratification thrust, right? Like every episode has you questioning things. Every episode has you wanting to examine more. Every episode generates 3 more questions than the 2 it answered.
This is our transition into Sweet Tooth. What I loved about Sweet Tooth was the fact that whomever wrote the screenplays, and I'm not talking about the comic, I'm not talking about Jeff Lemire, whoever made this into a TV show knew that people were going to binge this. And I feel like they worked out and they figured out a formula to make it a very bingeable show.
I'll tell you, I watched the first 2 episodes in one night on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And Monday night was my bad night because Monday night I sat down to watch 2 more episodes and I ended up watching the rest of the season.
Wow.
I was up till 3 a.m. watching it. All right. And the thing is that there was nothing sitting there telling me I have to do this or even that I wanted to do this. I just felt like it was right. I just felt like, you know what? If I go to sleep now, I'm going to be asking 1,000 questions. It wasn't compelling me in that super way to just like, I can't live without knowing this. It was like, I don't want to wait. That's all. I'm just that greedy for this good content right now. And I also wanted to make the joke, like, I hope they don't cancel this after 1 season because they left it on. Yeah. They left it on such a cliffhanger that I know with Jupiter's Legacy, Miller came forward and said, I understand now the context of what he said when he said that it's done for now. We've released the actors from their contracts, but I'm not done telling this story. And that's because his next show is still in the Jupiter's Legacy universe.
Yeah.
And involves their characters in it, the Super Crooks, right?
Yep.
So their story is still going to be told. Whether or not it's the same actors, whether or not it's, you know what I mean, the story that we wanted to see, we're going to get to see more of it. So I'm like, okay, good for him. He signed a deal. But this Sweet Tooth, yeah, they got to go the distance with this because it's good. It's good. And my apprehension was based around that trailer where the kids were all in the little prams at the hospital. And it looked like they super glued feathers onto that one baby. Like, the glue stick.
Yeah.
The yellow glue stick with the white glue. And then the feathers. And I was like, that looks so cheesy. I don't know if this is just shit horror. Like, I just didn't know where the turn was going to go. And I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed, I can critique it on a pandemic level that we would not call the disease the sick.
Yeah. But that's, again, coming from the comic and all that.
Yes. No, I get it. And second, like, it's got to be TV. You've got to edit it down. You've got to give it the pointy stick. All right. So, but I can just like it's the world we all live in now, where we're going to see people in a pandemic situation, and we're going to be like, doesn't have his mask on.
Not only
Doctor's
that,
not.
but you know, what people don't realize is even once we're all vaccinated, there's still going to be minor outbreaks of COVID-19 happening, right?
Yes, exactly. It's not something that just goes away because we got all that. But I'm just saying, like, the doctor was one of the ones that never put a mask on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that would be the first guy to put a mask on. Like,
Yeah.
no matter if he's immune or not, that's not a chance he's ever going to take, because that virus is going to mutate, right? It's like, you don't know. So little things like that. But really, at the end of the day, I get it. It's a show. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the journey. I enjoyed I don't know how deep, like how spoilerish we want to get, but the odyssey of it, the land that the landscapes that they created, they educated a lot of the viewership very intelligently about the bloom of the flowers being a sign of the infection and all that. And I really just enjoyed what they established in that world and where they can go with it. I really cared about the characters. Normally with kids shows, I'm very critical of kids acting.
Same.
Because it can take you right out of it. This was so brilliantly cast and performed. Credit to all of the people who performed in this show, because every kid was a stellar standout. Every kid had chops.
Yeah, especially the main character, right? Like, just
Gus,
amazing. Yeah, Gus.
like, unbelievable. Gus was just unbelievable. The little pig girl, unbelievable. Like, every kid hit it out of the park, just hit their marks. So if that's something that makes you a little bit apprehensive about a show, don't worry about it. You're not going to have that problem. I'll do the Jupiter's Legacy encouragement here. Go watch it, go binge it, pump the numbers up so that we get a second season of this. Please. I beg you, please.
I know. Please. Watch it. Please.
If I have to buy another series of 50 comic books only to be disappointed on episode like issue 1 or 2 because the artwork looks like trash to me, or the storytelling is just right up the rear end of something else, I'm like, Jupiter's Legacy, that's an experience, man.
I know.
I'm sure it gets better, but whoa, is it ever jarring, because you see the value of the script writers right there.
Yep.
Like the adaptation people, hats off.
Yeah. It's, you know what, in terms of cinematography, production, it's just beautiful to look at. Really well done, really nice scenes, really well shot. The other thing that I really liked about the show was just how heartwarming it is, right? Like, you think shit's gonna happen, shit does happen, but for the most part, it's a very heartwarming show. It's a very nice story that they're telling, right? And like I mentioned at the start of this, you know, whoever wrote this just knows what they're doing, and they know it's on Netflix. They know we're gonna binge it. So the way that they paced the entire show and the way that they left off every episode was just so well done. And I'm noticing this more and more with Netflix shows, that the way that they're writing it is very bingeable. They're forcing you to binge it.
Yeah, because that's their wheelhouse. But secondly, do you think, because you're right, the show never left you on a meat hook. The show never left you desperate. It set up the cliffhangers at the end. But that being said, if season 2 never gets made, I'm really happy to have watched season 1. And I feel like I have a degree of closure. But do you think that there's maybe some kind of directive to have happier shows on, given
100%.
the world?
I think so.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I do wonder if maybe it was an editing choice, which is possible too, because an editor can define a show. Like, the screenwriting helps. but the editors have the final say in how the actual production is going to look and feel. And it was uplifting. I saw Kevin Smith talking about it, and I was just like, I got to give this a chance. Boris says it's good. Kevin's like talking about it and weepy about it. So, like,
Pasta Kevin.
jeez.
I love it.
Yeah. That's his shtick lately. He's got the new He-Man trailer came out today.
I was literally going to bring that up later. But yeah, it looks so good. It looks so good.
The cheesy 80s. He was like, oh my God.
I love it.
Everything's like right. I'm like, the world's going to be complete and they're going to bring the toys out again. I know.
as our mutual friend Bramble said, this is what She-Ra should have been. Yeah, exactly. It's I'm so geeked out about that right now. But it just goes to show you, give the show to someone who knows what they're doing. You're going to get good results.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I know that Netflix knew what they were doing when they gave it to Kevin Smith. But the funny thing is that when you watch Comic Book Man, Kevin like rips on He-Man all the time.
I know.
And I'm just like, he's not a He-Man fan at all. And then they got him on this, and then I think he went back and said, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to become an expert. I can do this. I like the money.
Yeah, remember.
And I'm going to bring me.
They were too old to watch Transformers, G.I. Joe, and He-Man and She-Ra. True. Remember, they were from the 70s. They're closer to your age.
No, I'm more Ming's kind of guy, because what Ming's into, I was into.
Yeah.
Big time.
So they're a little older than you, right? So there you go. That's why those 80s shows that you came home from school to watch, that's why they don't watch those. That's why, like, when the USS Intrepid came up, they were just like, I don't know, like, whatever. I don't care about this.
Well, wasn't it the USS Flag?
Yeah, the Flag.
Flag, the big ship, and then the spaceship, the space shuttle one, and all that. And Ming's just like, oh my God. And they're like, what the hell is this?
Yep, exactly. So,
that's a 5-foot-long toy.
Yeah. Can you imagine that nowadays?
I had a friend who had every single toy pretty much, and I don't think he had the Flag. But I do recall him having the spaceship, the piggyback spaceship thing.
That's hilarious.
And I was super jealous. I was just like, oh my God. But to be fair, I had the Death Star that Jason Mewes went absolutely nutso over when somebody brought it in, and we got it from Sears. And it was part cardboard and part plastic. Yeah. It was crazy. I've still got it, actually. But it's in pieces, obviously. It didn't survive.
Yeah, but still, it's somewhere there. All right.
Nostalgia was high on that.
Yep. All right. It is time to talk about the main event. And it is Season 1, Episode 1, Loki. Where do we start? Where do we start with the show?
There are things I liked and there are things I didn't like.
Okay, so just an overview. Kicks off right after Loki leaves Endgame. So right after the Battle of New York, 2012.
Technically the Avengers' first movie.
Technically.
In the
yes.
In the redo of Endgame, yeah.
Yes. And then he finds this group that the Time Variance Authority, and essentially what their job is to do is to make sure that the multiverse, the timeverse, everything is in order. Now, this is the one thing that I didn't like about this show, was that this group essentially are like so powerful that the gauntlet and everything is meaningless, because no matter what happens, these people have the power to put everything back in place.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, the way it's kind of explained is the Time Authority exists in a pocket that is outside of the influence of those things. But you have the certain elements within Marvel, the Celestials and the Eternals. And obviously Thanos is an Eternal, right? I believe his classification is an eternal,
Mm-hmm.
as he is a god, and I guess even Loki falls into that loosely. But those people do have some degree, but they just have no power there.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because, yeah, you're right. They exist outside of the influence of it, but I think they are subject to the influence of it if they're
Part of it.
outside of the TVA.
I think that's part of it. Like, it's only episode 1, but they made it seem like no matter what, they have the power to get everything back in order. So it doesn't matter, how many freaking snaps happen. If they wanted to, they can put everything back the way that it's supposed to be. But I think that's the thing. To be, right? So...
Well, time moves differently there, just like with Jeff Goldblum's little pocket of Thor Ragnarok movie.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, yeah, they can put things back. And that's what they're setting up, is who watches the Watchmen, right? Because obviously the 3 Watchers are heavily figured within the mythos of the time pocket, right? And like, look, we know Kang the Conqueror is coming in, maybe not this series, but if you know the Marvel lore, like the woman that's the judge is Kang the Conqueror's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So and one of the faces of the Watchmen looks like Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's this inevitability. I think we know he's coming in one of the shows, but is he the big baddie? We don't know. It's not going to be Mephisto.
Though I love how there was that tease of the the devil stuff. Like, it was just like, oh, they must have added this after the fact, or they knew.
Well, the joke is that devil is Loki, because the ultimate reveal of the first episode is that Loki's hunting himself.
Yes.
Right. So this is something's gone wrong in the timeline, and they're leveraging. Obviously, Loki is killing these TVA agents, and they're trying to leverage Loki to go and kill himself. Right. Like
it's
basically.
Kind of, I feel like it's going to end up, and I feel like we're giving away too much, but whatever. I feel like it's getting
We'll
itself
put spoilers on for this.
Yeah, I feel like it's getting itself into a time loop where Loki goes through all the motions, figures something out about the TVA, and then starts hunting them down, and then the TVA gets Loki to hunt himself down, rinse and repeat.
I'm worried about that too, and we don't know. We're speculating. Our speculation sometimes is on point, sometimes it's not. As well, I think that's the whole point, though, in the series. I don't know if we're going to get that delivery as to that loop, but I think what we're going to, at the bare minimum, get is Loki's realization about self-worth and acceptance of himself.
Yes.
That's the main crux of the show, to me, is that it's all just going to be about Loki reconciling him being an idiot with, I'm going to be a good guy going forward. And the time loop could be the bigger time loop could be, that's what motivates him in the same universe to be a nicer Loki as the series goes on. I don't know where the gravity spots are going to be or the interactions are going to be. So we're all along for the ride. It was good. I didn't enjoy all of it per se yet, but I have no doubt about its ability to deliver. I liked enough of what I saw to not even question about watching a second episode. And obviously, Kevin Feige believes in this guy so much to hire him to do the screenplay for Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, and do the new Star Wars movie that Kevin Feige's supposed to be doing. He's the writer of that. Like, okay. Let's see what happens. He's very rarely wrong.
Yep. The other thing is that this show again goes to build the importance of the multiverse, which seems to be the big thing for the next phase in the MCU. Yeah. The multiverse. You know it's going to be a thing because of WandaVision. We know it's going to be a thing because of Doctor Strange. We know it's going to be a thing because of Spider-Man Far From Home. Like, the multiverse is
Ant-Man.
going to... And Ant-Man, yeah. So the multiverse is the thing right now. So I kind of like how they're kind of setting the expectations, teaching us about the multiverse a little bit, about the rules of the multiverse. the laws that the MCU are going to try to obey by. So I kind of like that about this. But overall, I like the show. I liked, the DB Cooper stuff. I really enjoyed that one just because it's like I like bringing that real world criminal case into this like very weird, very fantastical MCU world. But I believe that again, I still feel like this show can fall into into a trap in a little bit. But for one episode, it was a lot of fun, and we're gonna go along.
And they're already retconning a little bit too, which is fun
in its own way.
And in its own way, because like they redo the Steve Rogers line when Loki redoes it. He does it in a completely different tone than he did. He does it in a robotic tone versus the kind of patronizing tone that he used in Endgame. There's like these subtle little differences that you have to really look out for to catch.
Yep.
They don't really mean that much. It's just an interesting spin on how different filmmakers can reinterpret the thing to fit the new application of the character.
Yeah, this show has a lot of Easter eggs, but they're not Easter eggs because they're hinting at anything. They're Easter eggs because, it's kind of like a gift as being since 2008, for 13 years you've been watching the MCU. Here's this little thing, this little reminder that we're throwing in, a little ha-ha. Yeah,
exactly. And, Marvel can do it. They've got the chops, and they've got the history, and they've got the audience. So, good on them. I'm looking forward to, I think it's a 6-episode run. So I'm looking forward to the other 5 at the very least, hopefully more. But yeah, they've got me on it. It's fun seeing the analog stuff too. Yeah. I'm enjoying that, like the analog motif of the TVA and kind of that retro cartoon. I don't know, but that's something that we might need to rewatch a couple times in this series just to be able to get our heads around the rules that are being defined.
Yep.
And how this show even adheres to it, let alone other movies that are yet to come.
Yep, exactly. All right, so let us know what you've been watching. Let us know what you've been playing, what you've been reading. Let us know what you thought of what we've talked about. And Phil, tell our listeners where they can get a hold of us and find us.
You can find us at www.itscanonpodcast.com. You can hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at It's Canon Podcast. You can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. You can subscribe anywhere you find podcasts. You're going to find the It's Canon Podcast. And if you like what you hear, be sure to hit the subscribe button and get the notifications about when we release these episodes, because, man, summer is crazy. And, just leave a rate and review if the platform allows it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us whine.
Exactly. So we're going to say it right now. We'll repeat it on Sunday, just depending, because I know not everyone listens to every episode, but we will do our best to have 2 episodes a week throughout the summer, but there are no guarantees because it is summer, and after a year and a half indoors, I think both Phil and I want to do stuff.
I want my second shot.
Yeah, well, that's that first. Anyways, thank you for listening to the It's Canon Podcast, the review show. It is the podcast where we talk about everything geek, the podcast where we talk about everything pop culture, the podcast where we talk about everything we've seen, watched, read, and played. Because it's the It's Canon Podcast. He's Phil. I'm Boris. Good night.